There's a principle so powerful, so quietly life-altering, that once it becomes part of your daily life, success begins to follow you, often without warning, often without struggle. That principle is this: act as if you were already successful, not in arrogance, not in fantasy, but in discipline, in thought, in how you carry yourself, how you speak, how you move through the world. You see, most people wait for external results to give them permission to feel successful. They wait for the job title, the money, the applause, and only then do they allow themselves to feel confident, decisive, bold. But the man who gets everything he desires in life understands something the average man does not. The results follow the identity, not the other way around. You cannot wait until you feel successful to begin behaving like it. If you do, you'll never begin. The feeling doesn't come first. The feeling follows the behavior. You must first act like the man you want to be. If he is decisive, then act with clarity. If he is organized, then structure your days. If he is calm under pressure, then pause and respond with control. This is not pretending, this is training. This is rehearsing for the role that will soon become your reality. And when you do this long enough, something remarkable happens. The gap between who you are and who you're becoming disappears. You are no longer acting, you are living it. This is what separates the few who rise from the many who stall. Most people wait to be chosen. They wait to be validated. They wait to feel worthy. But the man who wins chooses himself. He walks into the room with the posture of a man who belongs, not because he is faking it, but because he has chosen to behave in alignment with his highest potential. When you act as if success is your nature, you begin to operate from the end, not the beginning. You reverse the process. Instead of saying, once I'm successful, I'll behave that way, you say, because I behave this way, success becomes inevitable. Let's ground this in something real. Imagine a man who wants to become financially free. Most people in his position think, once I make more money, I'll become disciplined. But the man who rises says, I will become disciplined now, before the money arrives. He budgets, he plans, he learns. He respects the few dollars he has. He acts as if he already knows how to manage thousands. And because he does, the world responds. He earns more. He handles it better. He becomes what he practiced. This is not magic. It is cause and effect. You get what you prepare for. And behavior is the preparation. Now apply this to your health. Do you wait until you feel fit to begin training like a fit person? Or do you act now, today, with the discipline and mindset of the person who already has the result? Most people delay. They think, I'll work out when I feel motivated, or I'll eat clean when life gets less busy. And yet they wonder why they feel stuck. But the man who acts successful in his health moves before the feeling. He does not negotiate with his emotions. He acts from identity. I am a disciplined man, therefore I train. That is the behavior of someone who understands how transformation really works. Now let's speak about mindset. Most people spend their lives reacting. They allow the world to determine how they feel. A comment ruins their day, a delay ruins their confidence. But the man who acts as if success is his nature does not operate from reactivity, he operates from intention. He chooses his thoughts, he chooses his focus, he chooses his language. Not once, not when it's convenient, but all the time. Because he knows that thoughts shape outcomes, and so he thinks like a builder, like a leader, like a man who already holds the result. Here's the part that most never understand. When you act as if you were already successful, the actions are not fake, they are early. You are behaving in advance of the evidence, that's all. You are creating the evidence by how you carry yourself. The body follows the mind, the results follow the man. So if you continue to act from your current limitations, you will reinforce them. But if you act from your future, your highest vision, those limitations begin to break apart. Let's go even deeper. How would you walk if you already knew everything was working for you? How would you speak if you were already respected? How would you handle today if you knew your future was secure? Would you rush, panic, doubt yourself? Or would you move with calm, with strength, with clarity? This is what it means to act as if. You don't wait for life to crown you. You wear the crown first. And watch how the world begins to respond. You must begin carrying yourself like the man you're becoming. Speak less, say more. Pause before reacting. Move with purpose. Lead your environment. Take your seat at the table, not as a guest, but as the architect of your reality. Others will notice. But more importantly, you will notice. You will begin to feel the shift in your bones. You will stop needing permission. You will stop seeking validation. You will start to own your space, because you have already declared that success is not a goal, it is your nature. Let's leave with this. Every outcome you want is on the other side of identity. Not desire, not intensity, identity. Who you believe you are shapes what you do, and what you do shapes what you get. Stop waiting, stop hoping, stop deferring your potential to a future moment. Step into it now. Walk, speak, build, think, and live as if success has already been written into your story. Because once you do that long enough, the world begins to agree with you. Now that you understand the foundation, that to get the results you want, you must first act in alignment with them, we go deeper. Because acting as if you were already successful is not just about posture, confidence, or presence. It's about behavior. And behavior, when repeated with precision, becomes identity. So if you want lasting change, you must commit to acting from your future self, not your current self. So, you want a promise to yourself, not your current self. That version of you, the one who already owns the results you seek, lives by a different standard. He doesn't skip steps. He doesn't make excuses. He doesn't wait. He acts with certainty. And your job now is to behave as he would, even if the evidence hasn't caught up yet. Ask yourself this: if I already had what I wanted, the business, the income, the health, the respect, how would I carry myself today? What time would I wake up? What would I allow into my mind? How would I speak to others? Would I waste time proving myself? Or would I build in silence? The man who acts as if success is his nature doesn't entertain low-level habits, he eliminates them. Not because someone told him to, but because they no longer fit the person he is becoming. This is about congruence, about building a life that matches your ambition, not your insecurity. This is where many men fail. They dream of greatness but continue to behave like the man who settled. They affirm big goals, then break small promises to themselves. But here's the truth. The small promises are the ones that build you. The way you handle the morning alarm, the way you speak to yourself when no one is listening, the food you choose when no one is watching. These are not trivial decisions. These are statements. And each one either says, I'm serious about who I'm becoming, or I'm still waiting for permission to change. The man who acts as if he's already successful knows this, and he builds his character when no one's looking. Let's talk about posture, not just physical, but energetic. How do you show up to the day? Are you shrinking, waiting to be validated, hoping someone notices your effort? Or are you moving through the world like a man who has already been chosen by himself? There's something magnetic about someone who doesn't try to impress, but simply expresses who they are with clarity. When you walk into a room with calm, with intention, with stillness, not performance, people feel it, and they don't know why, but they lean in. And it's because you've stopped seeking their approval. You've already decided who you are. Here's the beautiful paradox of success. The more you act as if you have it, the more unnecessary it becomes to prove it. Your identity becomes so stable, so grounded, that you no longer chase validation. You no longer over-explain your ambition. You no longer need people to understand. You're not here to convince. You're here to become. And that subtle shift changes how people respond to you. It changes how you respond to life. You stop reacting, you start leading, and the world begins to organize itself around your presence. Let's now talk about language. How you speak reveals what you believe. Do you talk like a man who is figuring things out? Or do you speak like a man who is clear, grounded, focused? Do you say, I hope, I'm trying, I'll see? Or do you say, I've decided, this is what I do, here's what's next? Your words train your nervous system. They create certainty. And when you speak from certainty, people don't question you, they follow you, because you have spoken your future into motion. You must eliminate language that weakens your stance, remove hesitation from your speech, stop negotiating with your old story, start commanding your new one. Speak as if your vision is already on its way. Not with arrogance, but with calm assurance. Because the man who has already claimed his future doesn't speak in hypotheticals. He speaks in direction, and every word becomes a step forward. Now understand this clearly. Acting as if you are already successful is not pretending. It is preparation. Pretending is fragile. It collapses under pressure. But preparation builds capacity. It turns habits into character. It creates resilience. So don't fake it. Train it. Prepare in private for the future you've declared. Wake up early. Plan your day. Sharpen your skill. Guard your energy. Protect your focus. These are not tasks. These are the rituals of the man who has already made up his mind. You might ask, but what if I don't feel ready? That's exactly why you must act. Feelings follow movement. Action generates belief. No one ever felt their way into greatness. They acted their way there. The fear didn't disappear. They moved anyway. The doubt didn't dissolve. They chose anyway. And over time, their actions proved louder than their thoughts. That's what you must do now. Act louder than your fears. Let me close this part with a reminder. Everything changes when you stop seeking results and start stepping into the identity that would naturally produce them. When you move, think, speak, and behave as if success is your nature, not your wish, life responds. Not because the world owes you anything, but because you finally stopped waiting, and you started behaving like the man who builds what others only hope for. There is a power that lives in consistency. A quiet, invisible force that begins to move in your favor the moment you start showing up like the man you claim to be. Not just once, not just on your good days, but every day. Because anyone can act confident once. Anyone can walk tall when everything's going right. But the man who acts as if he's already successful, even on the days where there's no applause, no progress, no obvious reward, that's the man who wins. Why? Because he's not driven by feelings. He's driven by identity. He does not behave based on how life treats him. He behaves based on how he has chosen to treat himself. Let's go deeper now. There's a shift that must happen in your self-talk. Every day you are either reinforcing your future or repeating your past with your thoughts. You cannot carry an old inner narrative and expect a new outer result. So, ask yourself, how does the successful version of you think? Does he speak defeat in his mind, or does he look for solutions? Does he dwell on what's missing, or does he fixate on what's possible? This is not about affirmations. It's about alignment. What you repeat in your mind becomes what you accept in your reality. So begin to feed yourself language that reflects your future. Speak to yourself with precision, with clarity, with respect, because your mind is listening, and it takes every word as instruction. Now let's talk about rituals. Every man of power has them, and they are not random. They are designed to prime identity, to align behavior with vision. This is where most people go wrong. They rely on discipline alone, as if they must wrestle their way through each day. But the man who wins sets systems in place. He creates daily anchors that remind him of who he is. A journal, a morning walk, a block of undistracted work. These are not chores. They are rehearsals. They are private affirmations to your nervous system that say, "This is who I am now." The man who acts as if success is his nature doesn't wait to feel inspired. He builds structure that guarantees movement, even when motivation disappears. And motivation will disappear. Let's be honest, there will be days where the goal feels far, where doubt rises, where old habits try to pull you back. And this is where your identity must speak louder than your circumstances. You must remind yourself, I act from who I've decided to become, not from the comfort of who I was. That's the line. That's the difference. Most people let life define them. The few who rise define themselves, and then live that definition moment by moment, until reality catches up. Let's bring this even closer to the ground. What do you tolerate that the successful version of you would never allow? What excuses do you keep repeating that would never survive in the mind of the man you want to become? These are the questions that matter, because acting as if you're already successful means removing everything that contradicts that reality. Not someday, now. Remove the language, remove the habits, remove the people if you must. You cannot become a higher version of yourself while entertaining behaviors that validate your lower self. It's not personal, it's principle. Let's talk now about action. You cannot think your way into transformation, you must move, even when it's messy, even when it's uncertain. The man who acts as if he's already successful takes decisive action, not because he always knows the outcome, but because inaction is no longer compatible with his identity. He doesn't wait for clarity, he creates it. He doesn't wait for confidence, he builds it through evidence. Because every time he follows through, every time he finishes what he starts, he earns something no one can give him: self-trust. And that self-trust is what separates momentum from stagnation. Let's not forget the importance of environment. If you want to rise, you must surround yourself with reinforcement, not resistance. People who mirror your future, not your history. If they do not push you, sharpen you, or hold you to the standard you've chosen, you must distance yourself. This is not ego, it is elevation. You're not better than them, you're simply more committed to your calling. And if they cannot support that, they cannot stay close. Protecting your environment is not selfish, it is strategic. It is how you guard your energy so you can keep showing up as the man you're becoming. Now let's come back to posture, not physical posture, internal posture. There's a way you walk into a room when you've already decided who you are. You don't perform, you don't chase approval, you don't overcompensate, you simply are. And people feel it. They feel your clarity, they feel your conviction, they feel your groundedness. And that kind of presence is built, not bought. It comes from repetition, from integrity, from choosing alignment over approval. The man who acts as if success is his nature no longer needs to explain himself. He lets his consistency do the talking. Finally, let me leave you with this. Every time you act from your future instead of your fear, you are building. Maybe the world doesn't notice, maybe no one applauds, but you know, you feel it. That sense that you're becoming someone solid, someone rare, someone who doesn't just dream, but delivers. And the more you act that way, the less it feels like acting, because it isn't. It's just who you are now. There comes a point on the path where the behavior becomes second nature. You're no longer trying to act successful, you simply are. But getting there requires one final shift that most people resist. You must stop outsourcing your standards to your environment. The world will not remind you to stay sharp, it will not tell you to stay focused, to stay disciplined, to keep your word. That responsibility is yours. You must become the source of your own expectations. Because once you stop needing the world to hold you accountable, you begin to move like a man who's already at the top. Because the men at the top are not managed by fear or pressure, they are managed by standards. Let's be clear. Standards are not goals. A goal is something you reach. A standard is something you refuse to fall below. And the man who acts as if success is his nature holds standards in every area of his life. How he speaks, how he trains, how he thinks, how he leads himself when no one is watching. He doesn't cut corners, he doesn't chase shortcuts, and he doesn't excuse lapses in behavior just because no one will know. People know. And that's enough. That's why he wins. Because when your own opinion of yourself becomes more important than anyone else's, everything begins to change. Let's now talk about decisions. Every decision you make either confirms or contradicts the identity you're building. There is no neutral ground. You are either reinforcing your future or reinforcing your past. The food you eat, the time you wake, the things you say yes or no to, all of it adds up. So the man who acts as if success is his nature becomes meticulous with his choices. Not paranoid, not obsessive, intentional. He does not overcommit, he does not distract himself with obligations that serve someone else's agenda. He's not rude, he's not selfish, but he is clear. And clarity, over time, creates freedom. Now, think about presence. The way you enter a conversation, the way you listen, the way you occupy space. When you act as if you're already successful, you're not in a rush to impress. You don't need to dominate. You don't need to constantly talk. You are still, you are aware. And in that stillness, people feel the weight of your presence. They respect it, because it doesn't scream. It doesn't beg. It simply exists, undeniable, grounded, and complete. That's what happens when you live in alignment. You don't just build results, you build gravitas, a kind of quiet power that can't be bought, taught, or faked. Let's touch on emotional mastery. If you want to move through the world like a man who already has everything under control, you must develop control over your reactions. Most people are slaves to their emotions. They react out of insecurity, out of fear, out of pride. But the man who walks with the energy of someone already successful responds. He pauses, he observes, he decides. He's not easily rattled, not pulled off course. And when pressure builds, he doesn't flinch, he sharpens. Because pressure is not a threat to a prepared man. It's proof that he's in motion, proof that growth is happening. And so he welcomes it. This brings us to endurance. Acting as if you're already successful doesn't mean acting perfect. It means acting consistent. It means choosing alignment even when the emotions are missing, even when the momentum is slow, even when life gets noisy. This is where most men drop off. They want the results of identity, but only act from it when things are easy. But the man who lives from his future self keeps his standards steady, regardless of how he feels. He builds even when no one claps. He finishes even when the outcome is uncertain. Because he's not here for approval. He's here for the process. Now, let's speak of boundaries. If you act as if success is your nature, then you must also protect what you've built. You cannot say yes to everything and still have time for what matters. The man with clear direction does not dilute his attention. He is not available for drama, for gossip, for environments that drain him. He is not mean, he is disciplined. He protects his time like gold, his space like a temple, his energy like fire, because he knows that without boundaries, excellence cannot breathe. And we must also address how you carry your future. Do you carry it with stress, with anxiety, or with certainty? The man who acts as if he is already successful walks with a settled mind, not because he has everything, but because he's moving with integrity. He's not in a rush, he's not panicked. He knows that his results will arrive because he's already living in alignment with the man who earns them. His pace may be quiet, but it is undeniable. And eventually, that pace turns into power. Let me close this part with one final point. Acting as if success is your nature means living your values, not just stating them. Anyone can say what they believe. Few live it when it's inconvenient. But the man who becomes the blueprint, the man others look to as proof that it's possible, is the one who acts it out when it's hardest, when it costs him, when it stretches him. That's where your future is shaped. That's where your reputation with yourself is forged. And when you master that, success no longer becomes something you chase. It becomes something you carry. There is something deeply powerful about becoming the kind of man who keeps promises to himself. It doesn't matter how big the goal is or how long the road may seem, when you know you will do what you say, there's a quiet force behind every step you take. That's what acting as if you are already successful builds. Self-trust. And once you trust yourself deeply and completely, life gets simpler. Not easier, but clearer. You no longer need to ask, can I handle this? You know you can, because you've built a history. You've seen yourself persist. You've seen yourself rise. You've seen yourself finish when it would have been easier to walk away. This is where momentum begins. Because success does not require intensity, it requires consistency. Most people sprint, burn out, and repeat the cycle, but the man who acts from identity, from who he's already chosen to become, plays the long game. He doesn't need to prove it all today, he just needs to align with the standard again and again. That's the mindset shift, from chasing goals to living standards, from emotional decisions to identity-based action. From external validation to internal certainty. That's where freedom is found, when your behavior no longer wavers based on circumstance. Let's talk now about resistance. Because the moment you begin living this way, acting as if you are already successful, you will meet resistance. It will not always come from within, it will often come from those around you. People will say you've changed, that you're too serious, that you're too focused, and they'll be right. You have changed. You've chosen a path most avoid. And your commitment will make others uncomfortable. Why? Because it reminds them of their own excuses, their own abandoned standards, their own forgotten potential. But your job is not to shrink to keep others comfortable. Your job is to lead by example, in silence, with precision. Now understand this clearly. This path is not just about reaching success, it's about staying there. Many people achieve something and lose it just as fast, because they never became the kind of person who could sustain the result. Their habits didn't match the outcome. Their identity didn't support the new level. So they slipped back to where they were. But when you build from the inside out, when you become the man first, before the result arrives, the success sticks, it lasts, because it's not built on hype or luck. It's built on behavior. Behavior that doesn't crumble when conditions change. Let's also talk about how you carry challenges, because every man on this path will face friction. But the man who acts as if success is his nature doesn't see problems as problems, he sees tests. He sees the opportunity to prove the strength of his standard, to reinforce his discipline, to sharpen his mindset. While others complain, he recalibrates. While others freeze, he adapts. Because he's not just reacting to life, he's responding as the man he's chosen to become. And that changes everything. Let's speak of one more thing: anticipation. When you operate from your future identity, you begin to think ahead. You begin to plan, not just react. You manage your time with intention. You protect your peace. You see distractions before they arrive. You're not scrambling, you're steady. And that steadiness multiplies your output. Because now, instead of leaking energy into chaos, you channel it into creation, into progress, into what matters. This is the difference between the man who builds momentum and the man who just survives the day. There is something rare about a man who moves without noise, who doesn't need to broadcast his goals, who doesn't seek applause at every turn. He simply executes. He builds, he refines. That kind of man becomes dangerous, because no one sees him coming. And when the results arrive, they seem sudden, but they're not. They are the product of months, even years, of invisible consistency. That's what acting as if success is your nature creates. Power without performance, substance over show, results without noise. Now, I want to remind you of something that must never be forgotten. Results don't arrive in the same season as effort. There will be a delay, a quiet stretch where you're putting in the work, building the habits, staying aligned, and seeing little in return. That's the danger zone. That's where most people quit. But you must be wiser than that. You must remember that nature always rewards the disciplined, that the harvest comes after the watering. And the man who acts as if he already knows this is the man who remains unshaken when progress is invisible. Because he trusts the process, he trusts himself. And that trust creates staying power. Let me leave you with this for now. You don't need more time, more talent, or more resources to become the man who gets what he wants in life. You need more alignment, more consistency, more clarity about who you are and what you stand for. And that alignment begins the moment you stop waiting for external proof and start behaving as if you are already exactly who you are meant to be. That's when life shifts. That's when people begin to treat you differently. And more importantly, that's when you begin to treat yourself differently. Not because something changed, but because you did. There is a moment, and it doesn't come loudly, when you realize you've crossed a line, not because the world finally noticed, not because you hit some milestone, but because something inside you shifted. You're no longer trying to become the man you once hoped to be. You are him. Your actions prove it, your discipline reflects it, your results begin to echo it, and that's the final stage of acting as if you were already successful. You're no longer acting aligned. You've become the kind of man who doesn't just chase a vision, he lives it. This is the transformation very few reach, because it's not about flash, it's not about massive breakthroughs. It's about doing the small things right, day after day, until they become part of your nature. It's about the way you answer the phone, the way you structure your mornings, the way you hold eye contact, the way you breathe under pressure. All of it is built, not gifted. You didn't wish for it. You didn't wait for it. You created it by choosing standards and then honoring them when it was hardest to do so. Let me be clear. This isn't about perfection. You will still have off days. You'll still make mistakes. But the difference now is this. You never stay off course for long. You return to form quickly. You correct, recalibrate, and move. Because you're no longer held up by emotions, you're guided by identity. You've anchored your behavior to something stronger than circumstances. And now you are impossible to shake. Now let's speak of influence. Because when you move through life like this, clear, grounded, fully aligned, others will feel it. You will become a mirror. People will see in you what they have not yet found in themselves, and that's not a burden. That's a calling. It's your chance to lead without noise, to inspire without saying a word, not because you want to be admired, but because you're simply living your truth. And that truth gives people permission to rise. Your very presence becomes a standard. So what now? You've become this man, or you're becoming him. What do you do with it? You expand. You raise the bar again. You look at the habits, the language, the pace that got you here, and you ask, what would the next level version of me do? You reinvent again. Not out of lack, but out of purpose. Not because something's missing, but because growth is now your nature. Because the goal is not to arrive. The goal is to continue becoming sharper, clearer, more capable, more valuable, more aligned. That's the path. That's the lifestyle. That's the quiet fire you never let die. Understand this. The man who continues to act from identity will never go back to living from emotion because he's tasted what it's like to lead himself. And once you've seen what that creates, the peace, the power, the certainty, you won't trade it for anything. Not approval, not comfort, not temporary pleasure. You've built something sacred, self-respect. And self-respect is the foundation of everything you will ever create. Now we return to a truth we touched on early in this journey. The world does not give you what you want. It gives you what you are. And when you act as if success is your nature, you are declaring to the world and to yourself, I am ready. You are no longer hoping for a breakthrough. You are the breakthrough. You are no longer waiting for the door to open. You are the man who builds the next door. And that kind of posture cannot be denied. It is not loud, but it is unshakable. So what happens when life hits you again? Because it will. What happens when you lose momentum? When old patterns creep back in? You don't panic. You don't spiral. You return. You remember. You realign. Because you're not someone who acts successful. You're someone who is successful. Because of how you carry yourself when things aren't easy. Because of how you finish what you start. Because of how you lead yourself when no one else will. And now we close where we began. You want to build a powerful life? Then stop waiting to feel ready. Stop waiting for permission. Stop negotiating with fear. And act as if you were already successful. Because when you do that long enough, truthfully enough, the line between who you are and who you're becoming will disappear. And you'll no longer be chasing results. You'll be living them. Every day, walk forward now, not as a man who is trying, but as a man who has already decided. Because when your behavior leads, your results always follow.